In this video, I'll be sharing with you a tutorial on how to cut and sew this deep neckline gown with side doubled gathers. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. So to start, here is my pattern, and I'm using this pattern paper for the full length of my dress. The full length of my dress is 35. So let's say this is my shoulder to bust, under bust, waist, and I marked 7 inches to get my hip point. Lower part is my full gown length. Now at the upper part of this pattern will be my shoulder. I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half at that point because this dress has a sleeve. I'll be attaching my sleeve to it much later. I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant, then mark a basic neckline of 3 inches. I'll place my ruler starting from the neckline all the way to the shoulder slope. So after marking that, after connecting that, what I'll do is to find my chest line. To find your chest line is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. I made a mark at that point and I'll place my ruler to draw a straight line. Now after I'm done marking out, I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half because that is what I have at the shoulder point. Now I'll also make sure that is what I have here, and I'll place my ruler to draw a straight line connecting all the way to the shoulder point. Now at this measurement, this my armhole, I'm going to divide it into 2 equal parts. Find the midpoint, and from that midpoint I'll come out by ½ inch. On the chest line, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now after marking that, I'm going to go ahead to connect from here all the way up and from the midpoint to the chest line of my pattern. Now after I'm done marking this, the next step I'll take is to go ahead to mark my darts. I'm going to start marking from my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. I marked it all the way to the waist, and from the waistline I went down by 4 inches. Now I'll place my ruler drawing a straight line connecting to all those points I have there. Now after I'm done marking this, the next step I'll take is to go ahead to mark my dart. For my dart, I'll use a basic dart intake of ½ inch on both sides. Now after I'm done marking that, I'll be extending my dart all the way to the upper part. But when I'm extending it, I'll make sure that my dart is a 1 inch lower from the bust point of my pattern. So after that, I'll connect this all the way to the under bust of my pattern. After I'm done connecting, I'll also go ahead to connect on the other side. Now the next step I'm going to take is to insert my body measurements. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 here. My bust is 33 divided by 4. I'll mark, then add 1.5 inches for my sewing allowance. Here I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, which is 28 divided by 4. Now I'm going to measure this dart intake and replace. But on the actual pattern, we will not be sewing it out. What we'll do is we'll be folding out that dart to create a little pleat which is at the under bust of the pattern. So just like I said, I'll go ahead to measure it and replace, then I'll add like little ½ inch to it so that when I fold the dart will be up to 1 inch, and I'll fold it ½ inch at the under bust. Now I'll now add my sewing allowance to it. Here I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. Measure this dart intake. I will replace and add my sewing allowance. Now use any sewing allowance of your choice. So for this dart at the waist, we'll be cutting it out. Here I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4. Then I'm going to go ahead to add my sewing allowance. After that, I'll connect this all the way up to the under bust waist, and from the waist I'll connect to the hip. So from the hip point now, what I'll do is to place my ruler, and I'm going to take this all the way down. Make sure it's not too curvy down. So after I'm done marking this is what I have at this point. So next, if you look at this dress, you observe that it is not the cut we have here is not at the under bust. So what I did was to go down by 1 inch at the under bust. You can still go down by 1.5 or 2 inches. I don't have much bust, so I don't want something that will not relax on my body, so I went down by 1 inch. From this point now, I'll go ahead and connect it right to the under bust of my pattern this way, right? So I'm making it a bit curvy so that the center part will not be too open, right? I don't really have much bust, so I don't want to expose too much cleavage. So now here should be overlapping the other side at least 1 inch, so I'll be adding that when I'm cutting on my fabric. For this dart and the extra half inch I added to make it 1 inch, I'll just split it out on top of the dress while making it. Now the next step I will take is to go ahead draw out the part we'll be using for the side pleats or gathers of this dress. So now I'll go ahead to blend out the darts here, and I'll connect this all the way down, right? So I'm going to extend this all the way down. Now when I'm extending it, I'll slant it slightly so that what I have at the center will not be too wide. I don't want it to be up to like 3.5 inches, because if I open it up it will be 7 inches. So I want to reduce it to at least 3 inches at this part, right? So I'll just go ahead and connect this, like slant it down to around 3 inches down my pattern this way, right? And I'm going to go ahead to connect all the way down. So for this lower part of this dress, you can go ahead to cut it out without a dart, like if you don't want to have a dart at this point. Now I'll just go ahead to make this dot or circle to indicate the button at the center of the dress. So what I'll do now is to go ahead to cut out the sides of this dress, right? Then before we go ahead to cut out the back pattern, I'll be using this front pattern now to cut out the back pattern at once, and I'll just trace out this side. So this is what I have. Now this is for the back pattern. On the back pattern, I'll mark my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. So what I'll do is I'll place the front pattern on it now, and I'll go ahead to trace out the shoulder area of my pattern and the armhole and the side. This is just because you don't want to go ahead to start redrafting your pattern. It makes it easier. So I'll come down at the bust and mark my waist, then connect it to the waist. Why I'm doing this is because I added extra dart to the under bust area and I don't want to add it at the back. So I'll just go ahead to connect this, because that extra dart I added at the under bust, I'll still go ahead to pleat it out. I took note of my waistline and I drew a line there. This is because I'm going to take out a zipper bulge there. I'll mark half inch for my zipper bulge, and I'm going to go ahead to connect this all the way to the upper part of my pattern. After I'm done marking that, I'll extend this all the way to the lower part also. Now the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark out the neckline. The neckline, I'm using 3 inches by 1. So I'm going to extend this all the way towards the zipper of my dress and connect it all the way down. So after I'm done marking at this point, now what I'll do is I'll go ahead to outline the bust area. I'll place my tape and mark my shoulder to waist, and I will draw a straight line there. Now I want to mark my darts at the back pattern, right? So we traced out our pattern at the back, so all you have to do is just impute your dart. So I came down by 4 inches from the waistline, place my ruler, and I will draw a straight line. So after this, I'll mark half inch here for the dart, come down by 1 inch, and I'll go ahead to connect this all the way up, connect at the other side, and connect at the lower side of my pattern towards the waistline of my dress. So after connecting it, this is what I have, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. And I'll also go ahead to take out my zipper bulge. So to take out your zipper board, you go in by 1/2 inch at your waistline, extend it all the way up and take it down. This is so that the zipper at the back, your back dress, will relax very well. What I'll do is to take my front pattern and I'll place it on top of the back pattern, and when I'm placing it, I'll make sure it's starting at the zipper of this dress. So why I'm doing this is because I want to cut out these sides together. Now I'll go ahead to trace out the sides of this pattern together this way. Now after tracing it out, this is what I have. So I'll just be using one side to create this effect. So I'll be doing a slash and spread here. What I had there was 8 inches and I divided it into 4, so it gave me roughly 2 inches for each line, and I'll go ahead to mark. So when I'm marking, I'll make sure that what I have here touches my hip at this point, right? And I'll take it down. So I'll label it as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now remember, this dress has 2 layers of flay. So after cutting the first layer, I'll be going ahead to cut this into 2 and then use the upper part to cut out for the second layer of flay. So there's no need going ahead to redraft for the second shorter layer of gathers or flay on the dress. So now what I'll do is to go ahead to cut out the rest of my pattern. So for the back pattern, you can just go ahead and sew a dart on this part of your dress, right? Just sew out your dart, or you can go ahead to cut it out. I'll still be showing you how to cut that out if you want to do so. Let's go back to the front. I'll go ahead to cut out this part of the neckline this way, and after I'm done tracing it out, for this dart that we have here, remember we are tracing out the under bust. Go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, this dart here, you can go ahead to sew up the dart or blend it out, but I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out here. Now after cutting it out, you can decide to blend it out as one piece and join your pattern to cut, or you just go ahead to add 1/2 inch for joining allowance to join it back, and then you can now go ahead to add your gathers to it. So when we are doing the sewing video, I'll also be doing that part of the dress. So you'll be attaching this part, and remember, after cutting the first layer, I'll cut out the second layer, but I'll be making use of one pattern to do that. Now let's move over to the back pattern. Now what I'll do is I'll mark my shoulder to under bust plus that's 1 inch, the same way we did for the front, and I'll cut this out. So I didn't get to see the back pattern. I'm just working or doing this with my own idea. You can leave it basic that same way, or you can go ahead to cut this open. So for this dart now, you can blend it out, or you can still go ahead to cut it open. So join us in our next video where we'll be sewing this dress.